Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. For those that don't follow me on my main YouTube channel, I have been recovering from a chest cold and still have a little bit of a scratchy voice, but feeling better, sounding just whatever, and still making Halloween cards. So I pulled out the Names Jack Honey Cuts wafer dies. And I have like random pieces of cardstock here. I also have Honeybee's Harvest Festival 6x6 papers. I really loved these sort of galaxy papers in the pack. I love the whole pack. But these galaxy ones, I was like, ooh, these would look really good as like a sky background. So I die cut those with the largest of the Deckle Edge A2 Honey Cuts dies. And then I die cut some white cardstock with the little ghost dies in the Names Jack set, as well as a bunch of pumpkin bases. And then in that wafer die set, there's tons of pieces for faces. So you've got like different eye options, a ton of different mouth options, like you can just mix and match. And what I find to be the easiest with something like this is to just die cut the faces from like the ghosts and the pumpkins, and then I will back everything with black cardstock versus die cutting all those little pieces from black cardstock and adhering them on top. That would just take way longer in my opinion. Although after I did this, I was like, this would be really fun to like die cut like just a pile of them, and then let the kids like play and like, you know, decorate their own little spooky pumpkins and ghosts, you know, like it could be a fun little activity. So it's another idea for another time. But anywho, after I had die cut all of the pumpkins, I did a little bit of light sponging using one of the Honeybee detail blender brushes and a couple of shades of Distress Oxide ink. I used Ripe Persimmon and Vintage Photo. I also used the Vintage Photo on the green cardstock just to like kind of dirty it up a little bit, since it is, you know, Halloween. Like things aren't, you know, bright, colorful, green, etc. Heck, here it's generally snow by the time Halloween rolls around. But anyway, after I did my bit of ink blending, I am now going to make these glow in the dark, because that is my favorite thing to do with Halloween creations. And it's so fun and so easy. So for my little ghosts, I trimmed down some cardstock into just handles, and I am taping them into the back of each ghost with some washi tape. Doesn't need to be perfect. I just need something to hold on to. And then I'm going to press each of these little die cut ghosts into some clear embossing ink. And I'm protecting my fingers with Post-it tape just because embossing ink is sticky. I don't like that feeling on my fingers. I don't mind regular ink, but anything sticky on my fingers just annoys me. Plus, I don't want to be transferring like sticky ink all over the rest of my project. So I press each ghost into that clear embossing ink so that they're completely covered in the ink. And then I am pouring glow-in-the-dark embossing powder over each ghost. I do all this in one step, just simple. Set each one aside. And then I have two wider strips of black cardstock here. And I start by pressing them in, and then I found it was just easier to like press the ink pad into the cardstock. And I'm completely covering each of these cardstock strips with the clear embossing ink and then that glow-in-the-dark embossing powder. So once everything's coated with the embossing powder, I can start melting it all with my heat tool. So the ghost bodies, like the whole body, will glow in the dark. And then these black pieces that I'm coating with the glow in the dark embossing powder will be used to back all of the pumpkins so that their faces will glow. It won't be as intense. If I'd added a second layer of embossing powder, it might have been. But I find the embossing powder isn't as effective on dark colors as it is on white. But it still gives that like neat little effect. So once everything is coated with that embossing powder, I'm going to melt all this with my heat tool. And you can actually see like extreme heat also. You can see it like reacts with the glow in the dark. Like you can literally see them kind of light up on the ghosts as I'm melting it. It's neat. Glow in the dark anything is just fun. So I melt all of these. This is where these little handles came in handy for the ghosts so that I could cover the entire piece, heat emboss them, and not burn my fingers. So I'm going to melt all of that embossing powder on all four ghosts, as well as those two strips of black cardstock. And then once everything is melted, I can then back all of these little ghosts with just plain black cardstock, because I only wanted their bodies to glow, not their like little face portions. So I just peel off the little handles, and then to back these, I just cut scraps of black cardstock. It doesn't need to be perfect because you're not going to see the backs of them. So this is where it was so much easier to just die cut the faces out of the little ghosts and the pumpkins, because this is just so much faster than placing all the little pieces, you know, to build everything. But again, options. So I just kept going along and cutting down the black cardstock. And then I was just using craft tacky glue, just kind of lightly placing it around the back of the ghost, like around the eyes and the mouth, pressing the black cardstock, and then I'll just let it dry. And those are done. And then for the pumpkins, I'm doing the same thing, except this time I'm using these strips of cardstock that I put the glow-in-the-dark embossing powder on. So same thing. I would just trim down that piece of black cardstock, add a little bit of adhesive to the back of my pumpkin, and then press the glow-in-the-dark cardstock into place. And then I'd also die cut the stems. There's 2 different dies that come in this set. So you have 2 little stem options. So I just die cut those from some dark brown cardstock and adhere those into place. So I just kept going along and doing this until I had all of my pumpkins, the faces completely filled in basically, and my little stems adhered. So just kind of my typical mass production sort of method, because as always, while I'm sitting here making one, I might as well make a couple of cards. And also because I had 2 pieces of that pattern paper. So I was like, well, it's just meant to be. So why not? So I kept going along and adhering all of these little bits of the glow-in-the-dark embossing powdered cardstock, and then the little stems. The pumpkins I had die cut from just 2 different colors of orange cardstock. Again, just to give it that little extra, you know, bit of dimension and definition. And then I'd also die cut some black cardstock with the Be Bold alphabet honeycuts dies. So I die cut black cardstock as well as some Tonic black sapphire glitter cardstock, just to give it that little extra something. Gotta have a little bit more glitter. So I die cut doubles of all the letters of the black cardstock. So there'll be 2 layers of black cardstock, and then I top each of these with the glitter cardstock just to give them that little bit of dimension and then that little bit of sparkle. So once I've got everything adhered, I can then start like building my scene. So the green cardstock I had die cut first with that Deckle Edge A2 honeycuts die, and then I die cut it with the grass border honeycuts die, sponged it with ink like I showed earlier. And then I adhered that to my kind of sky background here. And now I'm going to start like tucking in my little pumpkins and whatnot. So some of them I'm going to adhere just with the craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to pop up the middle one with a little bit of foam tape just to give it that little bit of definition. And then once that's adhered into place, I can adhere one of my little ghosties here, get him adhered into place, and then I can adhere the letters for my sentiment. And that's the only sentiment I'm going to use. I'm not going to stamp any sentiments, anything. Even though it's a Halloween card, I kind of like leaving it a little open-ended, so it can just be sort of any occasion during this season. So it can be just a thinking of you, happy birthday, how are you doing, whatever, you know. So adhered the letters onto my background, and then I'm going to adhere this to my card base, which is this heavyweight white cardstock, and this is a standard A2 size card. So once I've got my card front adhered, I had trimmed down the remaining bit of that like galaxy background pattern paper. Since it was a 6x6 pattern paper, there was still a little bit left over. So I just trimmed that down with my paper trimmer, and then I'm just going to adhere that strip to the inside of my card. And then I have one more pumpkin and one more ghost left over. So I'm just going to adhere those to the inside of the card as well, just to kind of finish it off. And this whole process I did in doubles so that I have 2 cards in the end with all these ghosts and pumpkins and fun, sparkly black letters. So after I get everything adhered, these cards are actually done. They were so fun, and I took them into my closet. It's the only place in my house where there's no windows. Like it can get like completely dark. So I held these up in front of my light bulbs, got them, got the glow in the dark activated, took them into the closet, and then just took the pictures with my phone so you guys could see these actually glow in the dark, which is It's just fun. I do so many of these, and every time I'm just like giggling because I'm like, it's cute. So there you can see how these look glowing in the dark. Like, isn't that fun? So thank you guys so much for watching. As always, there'll be a link below the video to the blog post. I'll have a supply list with links to all the supplies I use, so you can check that out below if you're interested. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye!